We're on. Lymphatics and immunity. Lymphatics and immunity. Boom. Pathogens. Pathogens. An introduction to the lymphatic system and the immunity system. Pathogens. Okay. Microscopic organisms that cause disease. Now that's a good way to put it. Okay. Viruses, bacteria, fungi. That's me. I'm a fungi. Okay. Fungi and parasites. Parasites. Okay? Those little guys that get into you and feed off of you. They're like, I'll take this chunk of cells and sit and eat it. Each attacks in a specific way. Okay? So, now they did say disease. Now keep this in mind. Now we're not going over disease. This is mainly virology. Okay? Okay? So, we're not going to go over disease, but what are other types of diseases? Anyone? I know that you're looking at viruses, bacteria, fungi, and parasites, but these are microorganisms that cause disease. What are other types of diseases? Mad cow? Okay. That's a good one. That's a good one to start off with. We're talking about prions now. Okay. Creutzfeldt-Jacobs disease, Wasting's disease, okay, Kuru, those are all based off of the same one, but that's a prion, that's protein, but it is a disease. Is protein up there? Because that causes a disease. Okay, how about this? Alcoholism. Isn't that a disease? Isn't that something they state is a disease? Certain mental illnesses. Social diseases. Oh, I know. Who would have thunk? Craziness. But there are lots of different types of diseases out there. We're just going to focus on pathogens, the ones that cause it. And the two main pathogens we're going to focus on are viruses and bacteria. Then if you take microbiology, guess what? You're going to focus on viruses and bacteria. Okay? The two main, or the one main difference between the two is a virus is non-living, it needs a host, and bacteria is living. Bacteria is living. A virus is not living. Okay? So a virus needs to hijack all of the machinery in a cell in order for it to survive. Without that, won't live long. Bacteria, on the other hand, it can kick it for a while. Okay? So, lymphatic system protects us against disease. Now, that's kind of a neat way of saying it. It's our surveillance system. Okay? It's our surveillance system. So, in saying that, if you have a big, giant military base, and on the corner of each of the towers on the military base, you have someone looking out around the outside of the military base, are they protecting the base? Yeah, kind of an early warning system saying, hey, this is going to come. This is what's going on. Well, that's what the lymphatics do. They do protect, but they're more of a like, hey, you don't look normal. You and you and you, go get them. Okay? Yeah, they're literally on watch. They're watching out for us. Okay? Lymphatic system cells respond to environmental pathogens, toxins, and abnormal body cells such as cancer. All right? Now remember, cancer just is fast. It's fast. It's wicked fast. All right? So it's one of those ones where we can defend off cancer if it was slower, but it's not slow. It's fast. So that leads us to another statement, and that's where this whole treat on Thursday is going to come in. Okay, that leads us to another statement. The faster the virus is, the less chance we have fighting it. The slower the virus is, the more of a chance we have fighting it. So here's a perfect example. Influenza B, also known as the flu, okay, attacks the cells in your throat. It's fairly slow. So if you've never had it before, 10 to 12 days of being sick. You know, feeling great afterwards could take a couple weeks, but yeah. So it's pretty slow. So we can knock it down in about 10 days is what the number is. It varies on each person. But yeah, okay. Ebola, on the other hand, is so fast that you're done. You're done. If there's no vaccine, no treatment, you're done. Okay? That's how fast it is. It is wicked fast. Our bodies cannot produce an immune response fast enough to keep up with it. All right? So, specific defenses, lymphocytes. And what are the two types of lymphocytes? T and B cells. Nice. T and B cells. Part of the immune response, identify, attack, and develop immunity to a specific pathogen. Lymphocytes are specific. Okay? They are very, very specific. They say, hey, you know what? I know you. Let's mount an entire response against you. No one else, just you. Very specific. The immune system, immunity, the ability to resist infection and disease. Notice now they're adding an additional word, infection and disease. Now, one thing that most people don't know about, which we usually say this, but I think we forget because the media, I love picking on the media because they love picking on you. The media says this: that person had this disease. If they touch you, you'll die. Dun, dun, dun. And then they flash to like an animal eating another animal and bloodshed and, you know, flies flying around. They're like, don't go near that door. Death will come. What they don't tell you is this right here, and it's right here. It's right here. Now, does it make it right? Yeah, it actually does make it right because it's right here. It's perfect. So let's check this out. It says the ability to resist infection and disease. Resist infection. Okay, perfect. Hello. Hello. You guys scare me. I'm gonna go over here. Hello. Yeah. Hello. Nice to meet you. Sir? Okay, I'm sick, by the way. So who did I just shake hands with? Raise your hand. Come on, nice rhymes. Why does it matter? First off, there's the ability to resist infection and disease. What it doesn't say is there first off has to be a way to get in. So everybody take a look at your hand. Did you have a cut? Were you bleeding profusely? Is there something wrong with your hand? No. So now it doesn't have a way to get in. The next thing is, even if I was bleeding and I had a cut and I was infected, do you have a cut? Again, it needs a way in. Now, last but not least, an infectious dose. There has to be enough of the pathogen. And it has to be able to get from me to you guys through an open wound, a nasal passage, okay, a membrane. It has to be able to get in. So there has to be an infectious dose. There has to be a way in. And unbelievably, which they don't tell you, if your skin, I'm not talking about mucous membranes, if your skin is intact, it cannot get through. So even if I had a disease, any disease at all, and my hand was cut, and I'm bleeding, and I did this, wow, her hand's perfectly intact. Can it get into her? Now if she goes, yeah, it can, through a mucous membrane, but not through her skin. So what does the media say? Don't touch the doorknob. Don't touch this. Don't touch that. I can touch it. Can I lick it? No, that's a mucous membrane. So as long as I wash my hands after the fact, a little bit of soap, shut it off, dry them off, I'm good to go. So what they're saying here is the ability to resist infection and disease if it gets in. Go.
Sometimes we don't know we have a cat on our hand
where infectious dose comes in. Did you get enough? There has to be enough to get past your defenses for it to actually infect you. There has to be enough. I get cuts all the time from working in my garden, and I go in and I wash my hands with hot soapy water like you're supposed to. And I start crying like a baby because I got a little tiny cut on my hand, but then I peel the skin back and I scrub it out and I do everything I'm supposed to. Did I just reduce the infectious dose? I did. Now my body can fight it off. I didn't say I got rid of it. I said I reduced it. Okay? So yeah, now my body can fight it off. What's that?
Peel the skin back.
Oh, heck yeah. When I get a cut, I peel the skin back and I scrub like there's no tomorrow. You know why? Because I don't want to get sick. I don't want an infection. I hate the fact that I'm having to push pus out of it, Neosporin and everything else to take care of it. Immunity, the ability to resist an infectious disease. Okay, an infection, infectious dose. You need enough. You need enough. If your skin's intact, you're solid. Oh, let me just make sure here. All body cells and tissue involved in production of immunity. Not just lymphatic system. So our system, our cells can actually send out information to help. We send signals from damaged tissue. You guys got that when the blood vessel was damaged. Okay, non-specific diseases or defenses. Non-specific. Block or attack any potential infectious organism. Cannot distinguish one attack from another. Can I get you a pillow? You're drooling. Okay. Non-specific. Your skin is non-specific. Sweat is non-specific. Mucus is non-specific. Oil is non-specific. Cerumen is non-specific. Okay? Macrophages, slightly, but they're still non-specific. They will just attack anything that's foreign. They don't care what it is, they'll attack it. So, non-specific defenses block or attack any potential infectious organism. Block. Yeah, it's got to get through a barrier. Oils. Okay? What was cerumen? Earwax. Yeah. So when that earwig is like trying to get in there and he's like digging away and he's like pinching away and he's... Okay? You're like, I forgot to use my Q-tip this morning. There's no entry. Stay away from my brain. Right? Yeah, and then when you pull the candle out, you got like an earwig in there. It crackles when you light it. Yeah, it's awesome. Non-specific, block or attack any infectious organism. Okay? They cannot distinguish one attack from the other. They just do it. Organization of the lymphatic system. Okay, so we've gone through some body defenses. We talked briefly how it's going to work. Now let's talk about the lymphatic system, which is going to go pretty quick because what's the one thing that you need to know? Lymph node. Yeah. Organization. So lymph is the fluid. Now you should know this because I compared it against plasma and cerebral spinal fluid. Let me say that one more time. You should know lymph because I compared it against plasma and cerebral spinal fluid. Composition is almost identical. The only difference is where it's at. So if it's in the lymphatic system, it's called lymph. If it's in the brain, it's called cerebral spinal fluid. If it's in the circulatory system, it's called plasma. Okay? Lymphatic vessels, very, very similar. Okay? Very similar to veins. And then lymphoid tissue and lymphoid organs. Okay, and the node is the one that we're going to put the most time and energy into. Now it says lymphocytes, phagocytes, and other immune cells. Okay, these are hanging out in there. They're kicking it. Yeah, it's like Philip Benson, and this is a lymph node. Okay, and what's Philip doing? He's walking around making sure you're not texting. He's keeping an eye on you. It's a surveillance. He's looking for that hand reaching under, going like this, saying, I'll be there for lunch right after my instructor. Stop staring at him because I'm texting. Yeah. So in the lymphatic system are these phagocytes, lymphocytes, and other immune cells saying, you know what, we're going to kind of peek out. We're going to take a look at this area. We're going to ensure that there's nothing in there, because if there's something in there, we get it. She's all calm. Like, kids do it to me all the time. I'm solid. All right. Now she's striking a pose. And a good one at that. She's like, thanks, Madonna. Strike pose. Okay. Why is this pose so good? Well, first off, it shows us quite a bit about what we're supposed to know. But it also shows us where clusters of lymph nodes are, such as cervical lymph nodes, okay, right here, all right, axillary lymph nodes right here, okay, axillary, talking about armpit, axillary, okay, and then we come down here, we have lumbar lymph nodes right here, and then there's some more down here that they're not actually mentioning. We have the thymus, the spleen, okay, and then mucosa-associated lymphoid tissue, also known as MALT. It's easier to say MALT, but it's also known as MALT, okay? And it's all about the digestive, respiratory, urinary, and reproductive tracts. MALT. Okay? So, axillary, cervical, lumbar, and then we're going to have a few more. Inguinal. Anybody remember inguinal? Yeah, right in here. Okay? So, why is this so important? All right, so here's where you guys start getting excited. You're like, oh my gosh. It's great. Okay, Sleepy Smurf, you're going to help me. Yes, you're going to help me. You can stay seated. You don't have to get up. She's got a beautiful smile. Every time I say you're going to help me, she's like, nothing but pearl. It's awesome. Okay, so have you ever gotten the flu before? Like flu, cold thingy? No, not really? No? Sore throat?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you're just like, oh, it's swollen? Yeah? Like really swollen?
No.
Like coughing, like, no? Okay. Quack, how about you? Right here, and you feel it, and you're like, oh, it's so swollen. My lymph nodes, oh, kapah. Right? Well, what are we talking about here? Let's come over here. Cervical lymph nodes. Cervical lymph nodes. Notice where our little guys are right here. Right here. Well, didn't I say that if I'm a white blood cell and I'm kicking it in a node, let's say this is a cervical node, and I'm looking around and I'm like, whoa, Miss Lee, you look sick. We have a problem here. Yep, we've got a problem. Okay? So, and unbelievably, what I don't know is Miss Lee's stronger than I am. So she just beats me down. Bam! And I call for help. I'm like, she's strong. She's whooping me all over the place. I need help. So when I send out a chemical signal through positive chemotaxis, that sounds familiar, my little call for help brings in lots and lots more macrophages, phagocytes, and unbelievably T and B cells. Specifically a T and B cell for you. But because I called for help, now we have 500 Phil Bensons in here. Is there enough room in this node for 500 Phil Bensons? No, so what does it do? It swells up. It gets gigantic. It gets huge. And so when you're sick and you're not feeling well and you go, oh, you know what that is? That's an immune response. So it's no wonder these little guys will swell up when you get sick. Because it's an immune response. It's actually right here. Look at all the mucous membrane right here. What the heck? Yeah. So there we go, and that's why we're going to put so much time into the nose. That's why it's so important to put all the time into the nose. Okay, as we drop down below here, okay, inguinal lymph nodes, right in this area and this area. Do we have a mucous membrane there? Well, actually, we do. Okay, urethra, vagina, anus, all mucous membranes. Can we contract an infection in those areas? Yes, we can. If we can, guess what? We're going to activate the immune system in this area. So it's kind of a surveillance point for all of our body. Okay? Questions? This is where I get excited. I love talking about the immune system. It's awesome. Go ahead.
So you said clusters earlier, so the ones you pointed out is where...
Those are clusters. Yep. Yeah, where it says, notice that they do pelvic lymph nodes, but pelvic and inguinal tend to be clustered together, but they'll give two separate names. So we've got pelvic lymph nodes, inguinal lymph nodes, and we pop back up, we've got cervical, okay? We have lumbar, and then we have axillary. Okay, those are the main clusters.
So like the rate lymphatic that could spread out more than they would go
Ooh. Well, notice it ends with nodes as opposed to duct. A duct is a connecting point. Yeah, so it's connecting one area to another. Just like a heating duct. So this vent is a node, but there's a duct that runs all the way back here to this one. So these will be our primary nodes, and there's a duct in between connecting the two. Nice. Good way to clarify that. Okay, any other questions? Notice the thymus is up there. Kind of important. Kind of important. All right, moving along. So, you know what? I think for Halloween, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a suit with all the lymph nodes on it. That'd be so awesome. What are you? I'm the lymphatic system. And I'll catch a cold and have like my lymph nodes right here all swollen. Like I'm a lymphatic system that caught a cold, influenza B. Like have stuff in it so I can squeeze it and it pops out. That'd be so awesome. That'd be the best costume ever. I know all of you come back to campus just to see me in that. Like,
It's in fall.
yeah, it's in the fall, yeah. Function of the lymphatic system: produce, maintain, and distribute lymphocytes. Lymphocytes, 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 B and T cells. Lymphocyte production: lymphocytes are produced in lymphoid tissues, lymphoid organs, in the red bone marrow. Well, they all start from the red bone marrow, so let's just make that very clear. They all start from the red bone marrow. Okay? Remember, leukocytes and then lymphocytes are part of, but they all start in the bone marrow. It's where they mature, where maturation occurs. Okay, where differentiation occurs. That's outside of the bone marrow. And even B cells, bone marrow, they mature there. Okay, so this is a little out of spectrum here. It says are produced in the lymphoid tissue, lymphoid organs in red bone marrow. Well, they're produced in the red bone marrow, period. Okay, they differentiate or mature in other areas, become immunocompetent in other areas. Lymphocyte distribution detects problems, travels into site of injury or infection. So lymphocytes can go out to those areas. Macrophages are kind of first on the scene. Macrophages, what white blood cell becomes a macrophage? Monocytes. Thank you very much. Lymphocyte circulation. Well, from blood to interstitial fluid through the capillaries, return to venous blood through lymphatic vessels. Circulation of fluids, well, from blood plasma to lymph and back to venous system, transports hormones, nutrients, and waste. So again, this just goes back to something I already mentioned to you guys. All right? Lymph and plasma. It just depends on where they're at. There's some differences in their chemical makeup, but for the most part, it's where are they? They can travel from one to another. So, from blood to lymph and back to the venous system. So, plasma, lymph, plasma. Does everybody get that? And I see some heads doing this and some heads doing this. Okay, think about it for a second. Plasma, blood, we move out of the capillaries through hydrostatic pressure, remain in the interstitial fluid, and we get picked up by the lymphatic system. At that point, the plasma becomes what? Lymph. It circulates through the lymphatic system, back to venous return. Once it gets back to venous return, it becomes what again? Plasma. Okay? It is very interchangeable. Same with cerebral spinal fluid. Cerebral spinal fluid, choroid plexus. From the choroid plexus, we become cerebral spinal fluid. Then we move up to the arachnoid villi. We leave the cerebral spinal fluid, and we become plasma. Interchangeable. Lymphatic vessels are vessels that carry lymph. Lymphatic system begins with the smallest vessels, lymphatic capillaries. And terminal capillaries, end of the line, these are the guys that are down at the capillaries. Okay? And remember, hydrostatic pressure, colloid osmotic pressure, whatever's left over goes into these capillaries. Now it's kind of a pressure deal because there's a little flap. And as it builds up, the flap will lift up and they'll go in. As it reduces, the flap will come back down. It's a one-way flap. It will not let it go the other way. So once it's in the lymphatic system, it's in there. It's not getting back out until it goes up to venous return.
What is terminal lymphatic? Where they need to
Terminal just means end of the line. Yeah, so it's literally at the end of the line with the capillaries. You betcha. Now, lymphatic capillaries, they differ from blood capillaries in 4 ways. They start as pockets rather than tubes, have a larger diameter, have thinner walls, and flat or irregular outline in a sectional view. Okay? So, yeah, they're very similar, but they're not the same. And there you go. See the difference between the lymphatics and the capillaries? One's green and one's red and blue. Perfect difference. Glad they colored it. Okay, notice if we leave the capillaries here, we can either go into the lymphatic capillaries or we can return to the venules. All right? And that's what you guys were learning in when I drew it on the board. This picture is much fancier than mine, but there you go. And notice the small amounts of smooth muscle here. What are these little guys right here? This one and this one. Let me point to them again. This guy right here and this guy right here. What are they? Starts with an S. Sphincters. Precapillary sphincters. I know, it's such a hard word to say, but you know what, when you're in the hallway today, when you're walking around, strutting your stuff, just walk up to someone and say, sphincter. Okay, and then run, because they're going to chase you down. Run like the dickens. Okay, I know it's a hard word to say, but yeah, they're precapillary sphincters. Do we always need blood to go to everywhere? No. Oh, look at this. There we go. Notice little flaps right there. Okay, we can push in, but they can't be pushed back out. These wonderful little flaps. And notice this is a blood capillary. We're going to move out into the interstitial fluid around in this area here, and then through the flaps. We'll build up, and then we'll start moving into larger lymphatic vessels until we ultimately come to a trunk. The trunks will lead to nodes. We'll surveillance in the nodes, and from the nodes we'll dump back into venous return. Questions? We do have lymphocytes floating around out here. checking out this area, but the biggest surveillance area is in the nodes. And the reason why it's such a huge surveillance area, because it's stagnant. What does stagnant mean? It's what? It's not going anywhere. We actually slow the flow down so much that we have time to look around for stuff. It's not moving. Lymphatic capillaries, well, they overlap and act as a one-way valve, and I just mentioned that. I even showed you. Enough to push in, but they can't get back out. Allows fluids, solutes, viruses, bacteria to enter, but prevents the return into interstitial fluid. So it's a little flap. And literally on that flap, this is what it looks like. And I'll even use green so you guys can see it. Here we go. See how there's little flaps right here? So the fluid can actually push in on these points right there. And when it pushes in, the flap does that. Once it comes in, the flap closes back down. The pressure of the fluid that's in there actually pushes the flap back over again. Prevents it from opening. So we can push in, but we can't go back out. It's like a one-way door. You can go in, but you can't come out. You have to go through the whole ride. You have to enjoy the whole thing. Okay? And notice what's going into it. Fluids, solutes, viruses, bacteria. Did they say fungi? No, they didn't. That's why I said we're going to focus on viruses and bacteria. Lymph flow, well, from the lymphatic capillaries to large lymphatic vessels containing one-way valves. Lymphatic vessels travel to veins. Literally, that's it. Now, the lymphatic vessels are classified, okay, as lymphatic vesicles and trunks. Okay? Lacteals are special lymphatic capillaries in the small intestine, transport lipids from digestive tract. Interesting. We'll learn a little bit more about that in the digestive system, but it's good to know. Lacteals. Lacteals. How about those lacteals? Did you know they're lacteals? I don't know. Okay, there's the difference. Vein, artery, lymphatics. Size difference, well, they're about the same size lumen as a vein. Definitely bigger than an artery. No muscle whatsoever. Okay? And there's what they look like. And you can actually see the fluid pulsing through them, which is interesting. Crazy. So, lymphatic vessels, superficial lymphatics, deep lymphatics, located in the skin, mucous membranes, serous membrane linings of the body cavities. Mucous membranes. So, guess what? When you touch everything and you do this, that's a mucous membrane. We actually have to have those around there so that we can pick up the bacteria that you just licked. Okay? Now, I know most people are like, wash your kid's hands, do this. Give your kid a chance to build up their immune system. Let them play in the mud. Let them run. Let them eat bugs. It's good for them. Yes, spider. Protein. Okay? They've got to build up their immune system. How are they going to get it? Now, keep in mind, the biggest majority of it goes to the digestive tract. This is all acid. It's a pH of 2. Really? No bug. Bacteria is going to survive in there. Very few anyway. Okay? So yeah, let them get dirty. Yeah.
Not eating bugs.
Why not? I bet your son's eating so many bugs you don't even know.
No.
Yeah? I bet he's just like, beetle. All right. Superficial and deep lymphatics. Well, deep lymphatics, larger, obviously superficial, they're smaller. Okay? Joined to form large lymphatic trunks. And there are huge trunks. These trunks actually empty into two major collecting vessels called ducts. Okay, so thoracic duct and right lymphatic duct, which should tell you where it's at. Okay, so major lymph collecting vessels, the base of the thoracic duct, okay? Inferior segment of the thoracic duct, well, collect lymph from left bronchomediastinal trunk, left subclavian, and left jugular. Well, it's no surprise that we're taking tests on what? Quizzes. What are all these quizzes this week and next week? Vessels. As in jugular, subclavian, bronchomediastinal. Bronchomediastinal. Bronchus, as in lung. Isn't this the mediastinum right here? It's telling you where it's at. All you have to do is think general cavities, and it's telling you where it's at. Where's the thoracic cavity? Anybody? Thoracic cavity, right here. Mediastinal, right here. Abdominal pelvic, right here. Okay, how about this? Posterior cavities. Well, everybody's pointing to the back, but that doesn't mean into me. What are the name of the posterior cavities? Now see, this is like going back to grade school, me handing you a crayon, say, write the word gate, and you're like, huh? How about cranial and lumbar? Right? Spinal cavity, cranial cavity, those are both posterior cavities. Okay? Cranial and spinal cavities. By the way, this is going to get progressively more and more review, because guess what you guys have at the end of this quarter? A final.
3 weeks left.
Yeah, 3.5. 3.5 weeks left.
What?
Oh, now I got your attention. What? Yeah?
I thought it was 5.
Oh, maybe 4. Yeah. We're going into week 7, right? Or we're in week 7. We're in week 7. There's 11 weeks. 3.5 weeks. There's 3.5 weeks left. Okay, so same thing. Tells you where the right lymphatic duct's empty. And there you go. Now, I want every single person to memorize this like there's no tomorrow. I'm just kidding. What I do want you to memorize is this right here. Where do we drain? Okay? Where do we drain? What part of the body drains where? Drainage of the right lymphatic ducts, drainage of the thoracic ducts. Oh, look, it's even bigger. Oh my gosh. That makes it special. It's important. Okay, this continues on where the drainage is. Notice Mr. Superior Vena Cava right here. Okay? So this is literally telling you where everything drains. I want you to know where everything drains. All the intricacies, no, but the drainage, yes. I'm not worried about this. Types of lymphocytes. Well, we just we're really kind of beating the heck out of the whole lymphatic system. Okay, type of lymphocytes. T cells, thymus dependent. B cells, bone marrow derived. Okay, and natural killer cells. Now, notice it says thymus dependent. It still starts in the bone marrow. T and B cells come from the bone marrow. B cells stay there, and T cells move on to the thymus, where they become mature. Okay, so it's easy to remember. B cells, bone marrow. T cells, thymus. T cells, they make up 80% of circulating lymphocytes. Main types of T cells: cytotoxic, memory Ts, helper Ts, and suppressor Ts. And these you do need to know, every single one of them. Cytotoxic, memory Ts, helper Ts, and suppressor Ts. Now I'll tell you right now, memory Ts, that's a memory of whatever pathogen it fought. Suppressor Ts are the cells that say, whoa, T cells, calm down, dude. Relax. Chill. The battle's over, man. Go have a soda pop. Yeah, dude. So suppressor Ts are the ones that tell your immune system to calm the heck down. Okay, the other two, cytotoxic T cells and helper T cells, we will get to a little bit later. Okay? And you've probably heard things like CD4 and CD8. That's what we're talking about. CD4 and CD8. Cytotoxic T cells attack cells infected by viruses, produce cell-mediated immunity. This is hand-to-hand combat. Fight one-on-one. Memory T, formed in response to foreign substances, remain in the body to give immunity. Helper T cells stimulate the function of T cells and B cells. Those are CD4s. Suppressor Ts inhibit the function of T and B cells. And regulatory Ts are helper and suppressor T cells. They control sensitivity of the immune system. So, whoa, dude, calm down.